One number. Just one number. That's all it took to ignite a debate that continues to ripple across the internet years later. A single printed detail, tucked away inside an old magazine, resurfaced and instantly became the center of countless online discussions. Was it nothing more than a publishing error? An overlooked editorial mistake? Or did it raise questions that deserved a closer look? Whatever the answer may be, one thing is certain. The moment people rediscovered that page, the conversation took on a life of its own. The publication itself didn't appear controversial at first glance. It featured aspiring young entertainers, profiles that most readers would quickly flip past without a second thought. But one particular line suddenly stood out. Beside Meghan Markle's name, the magazine listed her age as 21. That number immediately caught attention because it differs from the age reflected in widely accepted public records for that point in time. 5 years is not the kind of difference most people simply overlook, and that discrepancy quickly became the spark that fueled widespread speculation online. Almost immediately, people began asking the obvious question. How does a publication distribute thousands of copies with an incorrect age if multiple editorial checks were involved? Was someone given inaccurate information? Did an editor misunderstand the details? Or was it simply an ordinary human mistake that happened to survive the publishing process? None of those questions automatically point to a hidden story, but they became impossible for internet investigators to ignore. The discussion didn't stop with that magazine page. Instead, it encouraged people to revisit older interviews, archived articles, and public appearances, searching for anything that might either support or completely dismiss the theory that something about the timeline deserved another look. Suddenly, details that had barely attracted attention before were being examined frame by frame, sentence by sentence, as online communities attempted to connect pieces they believed had been hiding in plain sight. As the debate expanded, supporters and critics interpreted the same information in completely different ways. Some argued that the magazine entry was almost certainly an innocent printing mistake, something that occasionally happens in media without attracting attention. Others believed the discrepancy was worth investigating because they felt similar questions had surfaced in unrelated conversations over the years. Importantly, none of those discussions established proof of wrongdoing, but they demonstrated how quickly a single inconsistency can evolve into a much larger public debate. Then attention shifted toward interviews and personal stories that Meghan herself had shared throughout different stages of her career. Viewers revisited those conversations, comparing timelines, memories, and descriptions of early experiences. Once again, many of the observations circulating online remained interpretations rather than verified conclusions. Nevertheless, each comparison added another layer to an already growing conversation, encouraging people to keep searching for answers. One example frequently discussed involved descriptions of teenage employment and early career experiences. Online commentators questioned whether every detail aligned perfectly with publicly available information. Others responded that memories naturally evolve over time and that minor differences should not automatically be treated as evidence of anything significant. The disagreement itself became part of the story, illustrating how identical information can produce completely different conclusions depending on who is examining it. As more discussions emerged, many internet users began focusing less on individual claims and more on what they described as recurring inconsistencies. Critics argued that several disputed details appeared to point in a similar direction, while supporters maintained that ordinary editorial mistakes, imperfect memories, and incomplete archives are common realities for public figures. Neither perspective settled the issue, but together they kept the conversation alive. Then another development reignited interest. A separate public appearance brought Meghan back into headlines for entirely different reasons, yet online discussions quickly circled back to the same unresolved magazine question. Observers noted how rapidly older debates resurfaced whenever fresh attention focused on the royal family. Whether connected or merely coincidental, the timing became another topic of discussion across social media platforms. What many people found most intriguing wasn't necessarily the original magazine entry itself, it was the fact that the discussion refused to disappear. Years after publication, people continued debating the same printed number, searching for explanations that ranged from simple editorial oversight to broader questions about public narratives. At the same time, no publicly available evidence definitively resolved the discrepancy, leaving room for continued speculation rather than firm conclusions. By this stage, the story had evolved far beyond one archived magazine page. It had become a case study in how the internet investigates unanswered questions, how online communities amplify uncertainty, and how silence surrounding a disputed detail can encourage even more discussion. Whether the explanation proves remarkably ordinary or unexpectedly complex, one reality remains unchanged. Curiosity continues to drive the conversation, and countless observers are still waiting to see whether any new information will finally bring clarity, or whether this decades-old mystery will remain exactly that. As the online discussion continued, another question began surfacing again and again. If this really was nothing more than an old publishing mistake, why had it remained such a persistent topic of conversation? Some observers argued that there was simply nothing substantial to respond to, while others believed the absence of a direct explanation allowed the debate to grow far beyond the original magazine page. Whatever the reason, the conversation refused to fade, and each new wave of attention seemed to pull people back toward the same unresolved detail. For many internet commentators, the focus gradually shifted away from the number itself and toward the broader timeline surrounding that period. Online forums, videos, and social media threads began discussing archived records, historical documents, and reports that various individuals claimed were difficult to locate or verify. It is important to note that these discussions largely consisted of claims circulating online rather than independently verified findings. Even so, they became a significant part of the broader narrative because people continued debating whether the lack of easily accessible information meant anything at all or simply reflected the reality of incomplete historical archives. As more theories emerged, the internet did what it often does: it expanded the conversation beyond the original issue. Images that had circulated for years resurfaced once again, with some users suggesting they deserved closer examination. Others strongly rejected those interpretations, arguing that isolated images or screenshots cannot establish factual conclusions without reliable context and independent verification. The same evidence was interpreted in dramatically different ways depending on who was examining it, illustrating how easily online debates can become polarized. The discussion grew even more complex when references to technical image analyses began circulating across social media. Some users pointed to reports claiming certain images appeared authentic, while others questioned the methods, reliability, and conclusions of those analyses. None of these discussions produced definitive proof that settled the larger debate. Instead, they reinforced a familiar pattern: every new claim generated an equally strong counterclaim, leaving observers to sort through competing interpretations rather than clear answers. For longtime followers of royal news, this cycle became almost predictable. A new headline would emerge, older questions would resurface, social media would split into opposing viewpoints, and the conversation would once again revolve around the same unresolved timeline. The repetition itself became part of the story, not because repetition proves a claim, but because recurring public interest can keep an issue alive long after the original event has passed. Then attention turned toward discussions involving additional historical records that some online commentators believed could help clarify the timeline. References to possible documents circulated widely, but many of the claims remained unverified or relied on sources that could not be independently confirmed. As a result, the conversation remained firmly in the realm of speculation rather than established fact. Still, for many observers, the absence of conclusive information was precisely what fueled continued curiosity. By this stage, the story had evolved into something much larger than one printed age in one archived magazine. It had become an example of how modern audiences investigate public figures, revisit historical records, and attempt to reconcile conflicting pieces of information found across decades of reporting. Some viewers concluded the discrepancy was simply an editorial oversight that gained far more attention than it deserved. Others remained convinced that unanswered questions warranted additional explanation. Neither position has been definitively established by the available public evidence. Perhaps the most revealing aspect of the entire discussion is not the magazine itself, but the way the internet responds to uncertainty. When information appears incomplete or inconsistent, countless individuals begin searching for answers, comparing sources, and sharing theories. Sometimes those efforts uncover meaningful facts. Other times they simply illustrate how easily unanswered questions can grow into enduring public debates without ever reaching a universally accepted conclusion. Ultimately, the central issue remains exactly where it began. With one printed number that continues to generate discussion years after it first appeared. Whether history ultimately records it as nothing more than an editorial mistake or whether additional verified information someday provides greater context, the conversation serves as a reminder that even the smallest discrepancy can capture enormous public attention. Until new, independently verified evidence emerges, much of the debate remains driven by interpretation rather than confirmation. And perhaps that is why the story continues to resurface, drawing fresh curiosity each time it returns to the spotlight, leaving audiences to decide for themselves how much weight should be given to a single detail that sparked one of the internet's most persistent discussions.